Member for Joondalup.
Madam Deputy Speaker, my grievance to the Minister of Sport is in relation to the number of special events held at Arena Joondalup. From the outset, I would like to clarify that I'm not against ever having a special event at the Arena Joondalup. I realise that the music festivals in particular are broadly popular with music fans in the metropolitan Perth region, and they do attract visitors to Joondalup. Feedback from many of my younger constituents has been positive in relation to the festivals. Notwithstanding this, I would like to raise with the Minister the very grave concerns of affected sporting clubs at the arena, as well as highlight the impact such events have on nearby residents. By way of background, it is my understanding that historically the Arena Joondalup hosted 2 music festivals a year, roughly 6 months apart. This has been going on for many years, and whilst any festival causes disruption, the sporting codes and surrounding suburbs were generally accepting of the balance this quantity struck between offering entertainment options for residents while minimising as much as possible any impact on sporting clubs and surrounding households. Like I said, not perfect, but a generally acceptable balance nonetheless. What we've had so far in 2014 is already 3 music festivals inside of a 4-week period, with another one apparently scheduled for later this year. This is a doubling of the number of music festivals historically held at what is ultimately a sporting complex. The short notice with which these events were brought on, coupled with the fact that they occurred in such close succession to each other, significantly increased the impact on sporting clubs and surrounding households. Let me begin by highlighting the impact of sporting clubs that call the arena home. A term which in and of itself is important here. These clubs have forsaken other sporting fields and facilities to support the Joondalup Arena by making it their home base. This has generally come at a price premium compared to other venues and facilities. The arena is home to ACSRA, the Arena Community Sport and Recreation Association, whose main members are the Joondalup Brothers Rugby Union Club, the Joondalup Netball Association and Joondalup Little Athletics. Together these clubs share a common club facility at the western end of the arena complex. The Rugby Union Club and Athletics Club share a playing field adjacent to these club rooms. This playing field and the clubroom facilities were the most directly impacted by the music festivals, and as such I will highlight the feedback I've received from this association and its clubs. One of the first major concerns is the extremely short notice given to clubs advising them of the fact that they would not have access to their playing grounds. This was a direct result of the last-minute decision to invite the big day out to Joondalup. I've been advised that clubs were told on the 14th of January that they would not have access to their fields or club rooms as of the 18th of January, only 4 days' notice. This is despite the clubs collectively having had many bookings and events organised. The big day out was scheduled for the 2nd of February, and this in itself highlights the fact that whilst local residents get inconvenienced for a single day, clubs have to tolerate a 2-week bump in and normally a similar period for bump out. What made matters worse is that the next event, the Future Music Festival, was scheduled for March the 2nd. Given that the 2-week bump out for Big Day Out and the 2-week bump in for Future Music basically met in the middle of February, none of the clubs were able to return during February at all. Finally, the Soundwave Music Festival was authorised for Monday the 3rd of March, resulting in more damage to grounds and 2 days straight of loud thumping music for surrounding households. Relocating clubs to other venues and fields was a major logistical exercise for club officials, which, let's not forget, are ultimately parent volunteers. Whilst Venues West did reimburse some costs, feedback provided to me indicate that many more costs were incurred than what was reimbursed. The upheaval for the clubs also impacted their recruitment period and overall perception amongst their members and the community. Critically, these sporting clubs rely heavily on the revenue generated by their clubroom bar facilities, jointly operated by the various codes under ACSRA. Figures provided to me by ACSRA indicate that weekly takings are in the region of $12,000 to $14,000, takings which are not possible when playing at alternate and temporary facilities elsewhere. As of today, the Joondalup Brothers Rugby Union Club is still not able to use their home ground due to extensive damage to the field, which required 2,000 square metres of turf to be replaced. At the very best, it may be possible for the club to return on the 22nd of April, 95 days after being locked out, or almost 1/4 of a year later. For the Joondalup Brothers Rugby Union Club, they have lost almost half of their season. The Little Athletics Club had their recruitment drive significantly impacted, and all clubs are advising me that as a result of the lost income, they are struggling financially. Feedback from some officials indicates a strong desire to look elsewhere for a permanent sporting home. I find this whole situation very disturbing. As mentioned earlier, it is not just the sporting clubs whom we must consider when authorising such events to proceed. Whilst it would seem that they have borne the brunt of the fallout, local residents who live near the arena must also contend with an entire day and half a night of loud music, bone-jarring bass, and antisocial behaviour which comes with hosting one of these music festivals. As enjoyable as they may be for the participants, I again raise the fact that a balance must be found. A balance between offering appropriate entertainment options to the people of Perth and the ability for our sporting clubs to thrive at their home sporting venue and residents to enjoy peace and quiet. 2 festivals a year, spaced apart by about 6 months, seem to have been acceptable, just. But what we have seen thus far this year has tipped that balance over the edge. 2 music festivals back to back on a long weekend, resulting in some residents moving out of their home for that weekend, and extra almost crippled financially cannot be seen as an acceptable outcome. It should also be noted that each time such an event occurs, large sections of Joondalup Drive, a main arterial road for the area, is closed off, causing a much broader impact on the community. Minister, it seems to me that there's some serious mending of relationships required with the valued sporting clubs at Arena Joondalup. I would also encourage the Minister to investigate strategies that would enable clubs to raise revenue at these special events so as to offset the losses they make by foregoing club bar revenues. Minister, I also ask that you please work to limit the number of special events at Arena Joondalup so that some vestitude of balance between all stakeholders is returned. In doing so, can you also encourage better communication between Venues West and the clubs and ensure that wherever possible, the timing of the club's various seasons and critical dates are taken into account? Thank you.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank the member for Joondalup for your grievance. It's a good grievance, and it's feedback that I actually welcome, and I welcome the opportunity to talk about it here today because it's a situation that just doesn't occur at Joondalup. Just for a little bit of background first, Venues West was established in 1986 to manage West Australia's major state-owned sporting facilities. That includes Perth Arena, NIB Stadium, Challenge Stadium, Arena Joondalup, WA Athletics Stadium, WA Basketball Centre, Midvale Speed Dome, Perth Motorplex, Champion Lakes Regatta Centre, WA Rugby Centre, State Netball Centre, the new Waste High Performance Centre, which is being built, and of course the new stadium. So they manage extensive venues. They either manage these venues directly, or in the case of some, such as the Perth Arena and Motorplex, the management is outsourced. So I appreciate your concerns relating to Arena Joondalup, but I've got to say too that what we're talking about today is just not, it goes right across all the venues. So remember, they're managing and juggling across all those venues. Always the challenge for Venues West is that Venues West have got to balance the need of the community sports, the need of the elite sports, and commercial aspects that affect their business. In fact, I have, since I've been Minister, have driven the board and met regularly with the board to ensure that we're getting that balance right, and always, as Sports Minister, making sure that sport is the real focus. The reality, though, for government is that more than 70% of Venues West's total operational costs are covered by their customers. And by extension, Venues West's ability to attract larger events to their venues actually alleviates the overall burden passed on to the community and the sport. So if they can make these venues commercially strong, that actually benefits the sports. But I acknowledge that you can also have the other impacts that you highlight. And there can be an impact on the local community, and this has been raised to me by a number of members over the time. Just at Joondalup, and I'll talk about Joondalup now, and you mentioned the concerts in a short time. It was a little bit of a unique situation this year. I think it was a big day out in Soundwave when they had to be moved from Claremont, and it was very short notice. Venues West took it on at Joondalup, so it was a bit of a special circumstance this year. But nevertheless, I understand the issues you raise. They have to go through a detailed approval process with the local authorities, and all those have to be approved by the City of Joondalup. And I think the member made a good point that while there are issues with this at times, it also, events held at Joondalup, Arena Joondalup, provide a broader economic benefit to the area and showcase the suburbs, etc. And I think it's important, these concerts are important as well for the City of Joondalup and for the people of Joondalup. And you mentioned the balance, and I agree with you. I just want to make sure, though, that Venues West management, they do balance those expectations of people going to the concerts and the local people. And you mentioned things like noise, traffic, people in streets. I agree with that, and that's something that Venues West, together with the council, needs to be right on top of. The sports, I understand the disruption to the sports when events occur, and I expect and drive Venues West to make sure they communicate openly and work closely with the groups. And I'm advised that every effort is made to minimise disruption to the anchor tenants. But occasionally, and I think in this case, you raise a good point, it was a rush thing and probably they did slip up. So I will continue to take that up with Venues West on your behalf and on behalf of other members. Remember too, we are investing strongly in Joondalup for sport. West Perth Footy Club will allocate $8 million for their club rooms, netball $600,000 for the courts, and rugby. And you talk about the rugby pitch and the athletics pitch and the damage to the pitch. They're going to get new pitches. But I understand that disruption this year. And of course the Wanneroo Walls, about $11 million in total. And just remember too that once those facilities are in place, once you build facilities, but then you've got to maintain them. And you've got to manage them and maintain them, so there's costs there as well. And that's where these commercial interests come in to help alleviate those costs. We seek to minimise those costs for government, we seek to minimise the costs for the community. What we should be doing, if there are disruptions, yes, we do need to identify ways to overcome those disruptions to the sports, and that is by seeking alternative and available venues. You bring up the point about loss of income. I think Venues West are well aware of that. I think that's tried to be kept to as much a minimum as they can. But remembering too, there are advantages for Venues West being able to have these events to make sure that the venue then doesn't have to pass on more costs to the sports and to the community. So it's a balance, which you mentioned right at the start of your grievance, and I agree with you with that balance. I will take, again, reinforce with Venues West the issues you raised. Venues West, I think, generally have had a really good relationship out there at Joondalup. With every manager of any sporting stadium around Australia, there's always issues at times between management and the sports, and Venues West is no different. The only thing is, the difference is that they do have that focus on sport, whereas some others may not have that same focus. But from time to time they need to be reminded, and as the Minister I'll make sure I do that. As a result of this, I'll reinforce that. And I think, in fairness, sometimes their communication, depending on the people at the time and what pressures they're under, there's been times when it could have been better. I acknowledge that. Can I just talk though a little bit about Venues West, because it's easy to knock Venues West, but they have a very strong board. A few years ago, there were some issues with Venues West. I think Graham Partridge and David Ethan, under their leadership, they have become a very professional outfit. I think that the venues that they're managing and managing well, and yes, there'll be problems from time to time, there always will, no matter who manages the venue. I actually think they do a terrific job. Recently, coming onto the board has been Michael Hussey. One of the reasons Michael's on the board, he has obviously great sporting affinity at the elite level, but very much at club level. As a youngster from the northern suburbs, through not only cricket but football and other sports, I think he will bring that added emphasis for sport onto the board. But I thank the member for your grievance. It's a good one, and I certainly take this on board very seriously.
Further grievance?